Hello and welcome to And Now You Know. I'm Teresa, and tonight I'll be answering the question, is the Midwest accent disappearing? If you haven't figured it out yet, yes, I have a Midwest accent. Depending on what state and even region in that state, it varies greatly. North Dakota is wildly different than Minnesota. Wisconsin and Michigan have their own weird thing going on. Illinois, specifically Chicagoland, has its own particular one. And so on and so forth. What I've begun to notice is my son doesn't really have much of an accent. Neither my husband nor myself have particularly thick accents. Just the typical long A and O words and phrases that make it apparent. Even with my son's friends, they don't have an accent either, even though a few of their parents have thicker accents than us. So what's going on here? Is the Midwest accent disappearing? No, but kind of. Accents are learned. Children are more apt to pick up on whatever they hear most. Nowadays, most movies, TV shows, and even streamers are utilizing more neutral accents. Even in school settings, teachers are being hired from different areas of the country and are being taught in college to use a more standardized or general American accent, which this causes the children to be exposed to a wider range of speech patterns. When a child doesn't hear the accent for most of their day, they're less likely to adopt it. Children also learn very early and very quickly that being different in any capacity is fodder for teasing, so they will naturally curb any learned accents. If their friends and classmates are speaking in a neutral accent and speech patterns, they will adapt them, even on the subconscious level, to avoid standing out. A prime example is children raised in bilingual homes. When they're younger, most of the time they may speak with an accent influenced by their home language. But by the time that they are well into school, their accent has softened and become more regionalized. It's also generational. For many immigrants, the first and second generations will still maintain the accent. By the time the third and fourth roll around, it's practically non-existent. But the most fascinating part is that my husband and I are actually a huge part of why he doesn't have the accent. When we were teaching our son to talk, which this will definitely be a topic at some point because it blows my mind how I, of all people, taught a tiny human how to talk, walk, read, and write. Anyways, when we were talking with him, even up until now, we speak slower and enunciate more clearly, which you automatically switch into a more neutral or standardized English when speaking to young children. When a parent does that, you drop the stronger regional features to focus more on the correct pronunciation. You don't even try to do it, you just do. Your brain automatically tells you to talk more clearly and concise to a baby or a kid. Even on a subconscious level, it comes down to code switching. Everyone does it to a certain point, and most don't even realize it. What that means for accents is I will speak differently depending on who I'm talking to. When I'm talking to my husband, friends, family, I speak freely and use my native accent and vernacular. The oh yeahs are aplenty. Even in doing this show, I've found that while I'm not entirely erasing it, I am trying to maintain a level of, quote, professionalism and clarity. And by doing that, certain ways of speaking become less pronounced and altogether muted. Even though I already know some of you will say otherwise and I still sound like Marge from Fargo no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
But is all hope lost? Will I never be able to experience hearing my son say, oh yeah, for sure, or root beer the way it was intended to be said? As it stands right now, no, most likely not. However, just because he's not speaking with the accent currently, when he's older, he'll be able to, with or without trying. Just because he isn't using it doesn't mean he isn't learning elements of the accent. A prime example is social media videos where a child imitates their parents. They may not use the accent in the regular speech, but they can replicate their parents without missing a beat. They know it and have learned it, but it wasn't reinforced enough in the regular speech to actually adopt it. So time will tell if the Midwest will ever come out of them. Let's get back to the original question. Is the Midwest accent disappearing? Like I said before, no, but kinda. It's not disappearing, but it's changing, especially in the Great Lakes region of the Midwest. Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Cleveland areas specifically. Linguist William Labov identified and mapped the Northern Cities Vowel Shift in the Atlas of North American English. He documented speech patterns in those areas and noticed that vowel pronunciations were beginning to shift. Now, since I can't replicate it, I'm going to allow him to explain what this shift means.
For decades, Bill Labov and his colleagues have been studying how Americans talk. The result is a whole library of recorded voices and a fascinating discovery. It's called the Northern Cities Vowel Shift. Labov believes there's a revolutionary shift in the pronunciation of short vowels that have been relatively stable for 1,000 years.
What we'll be looking at is this mass of cities around the Great Lakes. Here we have Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, and Cleveland, Detroit. This area used to be the closest to network pronunciation. It was what the NBC standard was based on. And today, it is moving further and further away. In these experiments, we played, first of all, an individual word.
Black.
And then people had to write down what they thought they heard. So you can do that yourself. What do you hear?
Black.
Right. And then in another series, they heard...
Living on one block.
Now what do you hear?
Block.
Well, you changed your mind and...
Old senior citizens living on one block.
This person is saying the word block the way they say black. So we can
The shift in this one vowel seems to have a domino effect on the other 4 vowels, and they all change too. The result can be serious misunderstandings.
Now, this is spectacular.
Bosses.
Everybody writes down what?
Bosses.
Right. The guy.
Yeah.
The bosses with the antennas.
Now you begin to wonder, what are these
the bosses with the antennas
right. Carrying?
I can remember vaguely when we had the bosses with the antennas on the top.
So bosses has become bosses.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is very hard for most people to recognize.
So is it fair to say that North Americans are in different regions are growing further apart from each other linguistically?
It seems so.
What's even more interesting is that some younger speakers in parts of the Great Lakes region are actually reversing parts of the Northern Cities Vowel Shift. Recent sociolinguistic studies have found that in cities like Chicago and Detroit, certain vowel sounds that had shifted dramatically in the mid-20th century are now moving back toward a more generalized American pronunciation. So not only is the Midwest accent evolving, in some places it's practically correcting or leveling out. So the Midwest accent isn't disappearing per se, it's just evolving and becoming more homogenized, more soft if you will. As the older generations start passing away, many of whom were descendants of immigrants from Scandinavia, Germany, and Poland, the stronger accents will fade too. But even though the accents may not be what they once were, it doesn't change the speech patterns or regional slang. Now, if you're wondering, how is it that the Chicago accent is fading, yet a Boston or New York accent is still very much in effect? Well, it's partly an identity thing. People from Chicago are proud to be from Chicago. The accent is often circumstantial. Bostonians and New Yorkers wear those accents like a badge of honor and even lean into it. They embrace the fact that their accents make them easily identifiable and stand out. It's not just an accent, it's a way of life. However, with that being said, those accents are also softening, but not nearly as noticeable as the Midwest change. Because the accents in general have always been so bombastic, even though shifts have been observed and more accent neutrality has been introduced, it's not enough to drastically change the overall dynamics of the accents. And now you know. If you have any questions you'd like answered, feel free to send me a message on Twitter at ANYKShow or email me at andnowyouknowshow@gmail.com. Until next time.